In this video, I will show you how to create a pivot chart off of an existing pivot table. In my workbook, I have two worksheets. The first worksheet is called Real Estate Data, and it shows individual properties sold in various cities across Arizona by various selling agents. My second worksheet has a pivot table that I created in it, and that pivot table shows sales totals for each agent by each city. There's a tool in Excel that allows you to create a chart off of a pivot table, and that tool is a pivot chart. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. So anywhere on your pivot table, I'm putting my cursor somewhere on my pivot table. The pivot table tools ribbon should be displayed. I'm going to click on my Analyze tab, and on the right side of my ribbon I see a tools group, and there should be a button there. You should see a button that says Pivot Chart, and I'm going to click on that button. And it's that easy. I didn't even have to select the data. It knows that I want to use my pivot table data to create this chart. The first thing I would do is decide what category of chart I might want to include. So I might want to do a bar chart or maybe a line chart in this case. And I decided I want to do a column chart. And then I have various choices of what kind of column chart I would like to create. And in this case, I'm going to stick with the first one, which is clustered column. And I'm going to click the OK button. And that quickly now I have a good start on a chart, a pivot chart, based on my pivot data. And I can use my sizing handles. Anything that you've learned how to do with charts, you can do with pivot charts. So I'm going to size my chart a little bit, make it a little bigger. It's embedded it on the worksheet that I'm on, but I could move it to its own worksheet if I chose to. I'm not going to in this case. The first thing I'm going to do is my pivot chart tools ribbon should now be available. I'm going to click on the Design tab. I'm going to choose a chart layout on the far left, and I'm going to click on the drop down for quick layout, and I'm going to choose layout 1. I'm going to click on the chart title, and I'm actually going to change my chart title. So I'm going to type total sales by city by agent, and notice I've changed my chart title. If I wanted to, I could click on my Home tab and make that chart title 16 font and bold. So all of those changes you know how to make, you can do on a pivot chart. I'm going to go back to my Design tab on my Pivot Chart tools, and now I'm going to pick a chart style, and I'm going to choose Chart Style 6. Something to notice is any change you make to what's being viewed on your pivot chart will be reflected in your pivot table and vice versa. So think of a pivot chart and a pivot table as being Siamese twins. If you do something to one, it affects the other immediately. So for example, these are called field buttons, the city button with the drop down arrow and the selling agent button with the drop down arrow on my chart. I'm going to click on the drop down arrow for city, and now I'm at the filtering option for my pivot chart, and I'm going to check the box that says select all to uncheck it, and then I'm going to just check Chandler and Paradise Valley, and I'm going to hit OK. And notice that change is reflected in my pivot chart immediately, and it is also affected in my pivot table. And notice I have a funnel on my pivot chart on my city button, on my field button for city, which shows you that it's being filtered. But I also have that filtering button on my pivot table. So if I clicked on the city funnel on my pivot table and clicked on the drop down arrow and chose clear filter from city, not only would it affect that pivot table, but it would also affect my pivot chart. I could change my chart type, so make sure, in this case I'm making sure that I have my pivot chart selected. I could select change chart type off of my design ribbon, and that easily I can go in and change to a different chart type if I don't like the one that I have. So I'm going to pick 3D clustered column chart, and I'm going to hit OK, and notice that change is made. And again, anything that you've learned how to do with charts in Excel, you can do with pivot charts. Finally, once you've designed your pivot chart and you think it looks like in its final state how you would like to present it, what you can do is click on the Analyze tab on your Pivot Chart Tools ribbon. And in the Show Hide group, you can click on the drop-down arrow for field buttons, and you can hide all the buttons. And at that point, you've kind of locked in your view of your pivot table. Of your pivot chart. Pivot tables and pivot charts are a great way to analyze, aggregate, categorize large data sets. And pivot charts particularly allow you to visually depict the data for whoever is using your workbook. I encourage you to use pivot charts with your pivot tables and give your users a visual representation of their data.